What is your opinion about the people in your life and that you've been surrounded by? You probably have them in several categories like good, bad, entertaining, boring, always happy or sad, and so on. But my question is, how do you judge people as being either of a good nature or an evil nature? Some people make these judgments based on other people's words alone. Others judge people based only on their actions, while a few others judge people based on both words and actions. Which makes sense because the words of a person can give you a taste of their heart. However, according to new studies, there is one factor that you can effectively use to judge other people for how good or malevolent they can possibly be. This factor is called the general dark factor of personality, also called as the D factor. The definition is as follows. The basic tendency to maximize one's own utility at the expense of others, accompanied by beliefs that serve as justifications for one's malevolent behaviors. This is the basic law to which all of the dark traits associated with the D factor can be traced back. Also, it should be noted that if someone ranks very high on any one of these traits, they are highly likely to rank high on all of the other traits as well. Number 1. Egoism. The excessive concern with one's own pleasure or advantage at the expense of community well-being. There is nothing wrong in having a healthy amount of ego, but when taken too far, the excessive egoism and baseless narcissism becomes dangerous. The consequences are only worse, both for the person themselves and the people that surround them. Identifying egoism in others is fairly easy, the most key sign being an unusual obsession with themselves. Number 2. Machiavellianism. It is defined by manipulativeness and a strategic calculating orientation. Imagine someone who is unbearably naive, tactless, and extremely considerate, to the point of risking themselves or their own agenda. Now imagine the complete opposite, and you have a Machiavellian. These people are not only strategic calculators, but also inherently ruthless and untrustworthy. They usually don't have a moral compass, just a personal agenda. Everything else revolves around that. Identifying Machiavellianism is often difficult, and in some cases it can remain undetected for a lifetime. Usually the best way to identify people with this trait is to use your intuition. The gut feeling rarely lies. Number 3. Moral disengagement. It is a generalized cognitive orientation to the world that differentiates individuals' thinking in a way that powerfully affects unethical behavior. For some reason, such people come to the naive conclusion that there is no need to concern themselves with this thing called morality. That way, they'll be able to get more and more of what they want without the unnecessary burden of responsibility. However, in an interdependent social reality, this becomes a recipe for misery. Number 4. Narcissism. In this case, ego reinforcement is the all-consuming motive. These are the people who think about themselves, talk about themselves, and work to attract attention for themselves. Vanity is the sole purpose of their existence. But the irony is that they usually never get to that point, because all their energy is dedicated to attracting attention, and sparing very less of it, if at all, to make themselves valuable to the real world. Number 5. Psychological entitlement. A stable and pervasive sense that one deserves more and is entitled to more than others. Often some form of misfortune or trauma makes the person feel entitled to more than what other people have. This is not necessarily a bad thing as long as it forces them to level up their game and produce great results. However, when the person feels entitled to more than someone else, even though their input was the same, then it becomes a problem. The world doesn't care about your past problems or traumas. It's not even good at all if they do. You shouldn't expect more just because you think you've been through more. You should only expect more when you've made yourself or your work more valuable in the eyes of other people. Number 6. Psychopathy. Deficits in affect that is callousness, and self-control, that is impulsivity. Ironically, amorality leads to impulsivity and lack of control instead of prosperity and control over one's life. Why? Because no sense of morality also means no sense of responsibility. And no sense of responsibility means you won't do anything to make your life and your world a better place. This makes it easier to identify the psychopaths among us. Number 7. Sadism. A person who humiliates others shows a long-standing pattern of cruel and demeaning behavior to others, or intentionally inflicts physical, sexual, or psychological pain or suffering on others in order to exert power and dominance for pleasure or enjoyment. The simplest way to define or identify such people is that they find pleasure and enjoyment in pain. It can be pain inflicted upon others, pain inflicted upon themselves, or both. The need for pain has deep roots. It comes from a sense of deep failure or nihilism, or it comes from a grave inability to identify or acquire what is beautiful and admirable. Things like deep human connections, great relationships, or success and happiness in any form. So, which of these traits have you witnessed in others or in yourself? Let me know in the comments below.